Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pulse. We're super excited to get back to it for April, Autism Awareness Month. The best thing that we can say about Autism Awareness Month is that we are psyched to have a platform. And something that we wanted to talk about is advocacy and self-advocacy. So today, we're going to dive into that conversation, and it will be part one of a 6-part series on advocacy. So we're going to get a little bit deep into our conversation, but today we're going to start with an overview. We also have a new host we'd like to welcome on board, Parker. Now, Parker has been an incredible person to work with and has got some amazing ideas, and we're really psyched to have them on the team. Today we also have a guest, Tarra Carlson from Alberta, and she shares some of her experience and knowledge about advocacy groups in Alberta. Without much further ado, let's hop into that conversation now. What types of advocacy work, and what does that look like?
For me, advocacy just means being yourself. And if you're a loudmouth like me who's had enough of the use your talent.
I think advocacy that works is when you're what you're telling when the person that you're telling the information wants to know the information. Like you're meeting them where they're at with the language that they understand.
And just kind of like teaching them and figuring out where they're at, like Marker said, and teaching them on that level for what they're able to grasp in that moment. And not overloading them, because if you overload them, then they'll going to forget most of it.
Or like block out wanting to learn anything more ever again.
There's another side of it. You also have to pay attention as to what age group you're advocating to about autism and or other neurodiverse issues. If you're going to come up to someone like me, whose brain is already mature, for which it's slower for us, even neurotypicals, to pick up on the nuances and the social context that's being used given the day.
So that's a good point too, and it kind of brings it back to what Parker was saying about communicating with people in their language. You know, that's not always easy to figure out which demographics of people you're going to be able to speak to in a way that works for them. So that's a really good point, and I like that you brought that back around. What are some things in advocacy that you think don't work?
What doesn't work is when a neurotypical tries to speak about something they think they know when they know nothing about it, even if they're educated. If you haven't walked the walk, how can you talk the talk?
What about in self-advocacy? What are some red flags when you see a self-advocate doing?
Yelling at people and just telling them that they've done wrong, but not telling them what they've done wrong or why it's wrong. And I know personally when somebody just yells at me, hey, you've done wrong, and do this way, and doesn't give me a reason for it, I'm more likely to shut them out and not want to listen to anything they have to say. Whereas if somebody comes up to me and goes, hey, so I noticed you did this. This is why it might be wrong or hurtful to somebody else. Maybe we can do it this way, and everybody will feel included, then or more inclusive or helpful for somebody else, then I'm much more likely to listen to that.
And that brings up kind of what you were talking about a few weeks ago with collaboration. Like, it's really hard for us all to be heard when none of us want to work together.
Yeah.
So at the Autism Speaks Walk, that's generally held in Richmond in British Columbia, the big Autism Speaks Walk is usually held at the center where we work, the Pacific Autism Family Network. And what I notice is that some years we have protesters, and those are my favorite years because we get to provide the protesters who are protesting us with a tent, with water, with snacks, and we listen to them. So for us, seeing protesters is an opportunity for us to create a dialogue, which, hopefully will lead to collaboration. But we both have to come to the table with the same desire. in terms of self-advocacy, the thing that works best is supporting each other, creating a system of mutual support. Sorry, go ahead.
You should, like, every part of who you are should be embraced. And yeah, there's some people who you aren't going to click with, but on the larger scale, nothing is wrong with you.
There's only one way to move forward with other people, and that's to know them.
Protesting is a great way to get attention, as long as that protesting turns into teaching and talking and collaborating, and doesn't just continue to be screaming because you're upset.
Yeah.
Like, as long as like they have valid points and they aren't just like screaming and being violent, because if they're screaming and being violent, then there's probably no way of teaching them because they don't want to learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Parker. I was just going to ask you what your thoughts were on effective versus non-effective strategies for advocacy, self-advocacy specifically. Yeah, so I want to talk about the different types of actions that people can take in terms of advocacy and self-advocacy. So there's 4 things that I looked up that seem to be pretty consistent among advocacy groups, and that is having petitions and letters, having people doing research, having people get involved in social media, and doing in-person action like marches, sit-ins, boycotts, protests, that sort of thing.
Becoming friends with politicians.
Networking, absolutely.
There's lots you can do that are relatively free, and sometimes it just takes teaching one person at a time.
We don't know what we need until we get there.
Until we need it.
Yeah.
So maybe when we look at advocating for our future selves, we look at how we will need to advocate.
It's you young ones that might be able to help us out.
So how do you want, okay, here's a better question. We're at your disposal right now. You have everything you could possibly need to make your dreams come true. What does that look like? What can we do right now, today, for you to make sure that as you enter your later years, you are taken care of?
Make sure that there are certain supports that are in place, given the age, given the support, given the need. So depending on the person's need depends on the person's ability. Don't depend on this one size fits all system like it's going on.
What do you think are some good ways that we can advocate for what we're going to need?
I think doing more to educate like medical professionals.
What would we do there? Well, we would research, we would educate, we would network, we would sign petitions, we would do in-person action, and we would blast social media. Right, so we've got all these tools at our disposal. And Parker brought up just an amazing point, educating. We have to educate others. And that's the best way to communicate with them, is to educate, right? Teach instead of preach. So yeah, I'm really psyched about that. So thank you both for making these points just come up so naturally. Have you had any negative experiences with advocacy groups?
Oh, yes.
Are you familiar with any other advocacy groups?
Yes, I am. There's a few of them here in Alberta.
So early on in my advocacy career, I didn't know there was anything other than the puzzle piece. I was working at a warehouse at the time, and I printed out some puzzle pieces and I wrote facts about autism on them, and I put them on the doors. And then when the delivery drivers came in, they would ask questions about what that was about, and I got a chance to teach them. Not about the puzzle piece, but about the fact that they specifically asked about. And I know there are issues with the puzzle piece. I had no idea about them at the time. I did research later on when I was screamed at about it online. But I also cannot use the infinity symbol for this specific reason. So when I posted about here's what I did for autism awareness, today at work, I had somebody comment and be like, well, autistic people don't like the puzzle piece. You have to use this symbol. I'm like, I am autistic. I've never seen this symbol before. I'm sorry I didn't realize it was offensive. And the person came back with me, well, autistic people don't like it, so don't use it. But yeah, so I again told her, well, I am autistic. Please don't exclude me from the community. I don't know what the issue is. And she came back at me again with, autistic people don't like. And I'm like, okay, I have no need for this symbol. I have no need for anybody who talks to me like this. I am blocking you. But since that experience, I cannot connect with the infinity symbol, which is what she wanted me to use. I'm like, if you had just given me the lesson yourself and been like, okay, well, this is the history and here's why we don't like it, and this is why we have chosen this symbol, wouldn't have been so bad. Yeah, so it's even hard for me to approach any group now that uses that symbol because I felt very attacked by it.
That does it for this week's episode of The Pulse. Thanks for joining us, and we're really glad to be back with you to celebrate April. Please remember to share, subscribe, and hit your notification button, and leave us a comment when and where you can. We'd also love you to rate our show, if you can, on Spotify and Apple. That would be greatly appreciated. As always, if you have anything you would like us to discuss, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, shoot us an email at VOA, V as in Victor, O as in Oscar, A as in Apple, at pacificautismfamily.com. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you soon.